received a proposal from the Atlantic Schooners group?
No.
And they just came out with a new proposal for a smaller stadium that will be used year-round by amateur athletes. How likely are you to consider a proposal like that?
I haven't seen the proposal. I didn't even read the article. I heard there was a broadcast about it. Potentially there was a change in what they were originally proposing, but I don't know what it is they're proposing.
So what's your position right now on giving provincial money to a CFL stadium?
Well, no, what I said was, all along, when I have a proposal, we look at the proposal. We will not take money of the general revenue to support any stadium. But I have not been given a proposal, nor has my staff seen the proposal.
Infrastructure around a stadium is possible, though. You might contribute to an interchange or whatever other infrastructure.
Yeah, depending on what's required for traffic flow, but that would be something particularly where they're referring to is in HRM, so it would be a project that they would probably be doing. But we would be looking at it. There's nothing before, so I'd be purely speculating.
Premier, I wasn't here on Friday, but I did read the coverage on Northern Pulp, and I'm just not quite clear on what it would take to change the date. I realize the date, you said that the date is in the legislation, that's clear. Have you been party to any conversations about changing the date and about how that would be done?
No. What I said on Friday, and I'll continue to say to the company, they don't have a permit. No reason to change the date. They need to put a permit together that meets the environmental standards of the province. And that's what I think they should focus on. That's what I said on Friday.
But it's also still your contention that for you to entertain changing the date, you would need community support across the board.
Yeah, need a path. There's no, at this point, you need a path of some sort there, but they need to meet the environmental standards of the province. There was a EA put in that requires more information. The minister was very clear about that.
And to have community buy-in, I just want to be clear on this. Pictou Landing First Nation would have to go along with an extension?
Listen, first of all, we're talking about a hypothetical here. What everyone should focus on, really, and what companies should focus on, is if they want to actually continue this mill operating, they need to be able to cite the treatment facility that meets the environmental standards of the province.
What do you think of their threat to pull out of the province?
Listen, it's their choice as a company. They make decisions on behalf of their global company. I would encourage them. They got a great workforce here. They need to, though, meet the environmental standards of the province. Port Harbour is no longer an option to be able to continue to allow it to happen. And I believe there is a path forward. I believe they can coexist in that area, but it's up to them to make that economic decision on behalf of their employees.
Is the province's liability regarding Boat Harbour still being negotiated, or has that been settled yet?
Well, it would still be, we're still in the process of negotiating, but ultimately, if they close their company, that's a very different conversation.
In what way?
Well, that's a choice they made. If they choose to not, there's a path for them. There's an environmental, they can set a standard out there. It wouldn't be us closing it. What we're saying is Boat Harbour's not an option.
The indemnity agreement does sort of talk about future earnings of the company. So are you saying that the province wouldn't be exposed to compensating the company for lost revenue over the next 11 years?
I'm saying they should focus on looking at providing a environmental DA around the treatment facility that would meet the environmental standards of the province. That's what they should focus on. If they choose to leave, then that's a very different conversation for us.
Again, not to beat a dead horse, but if they decide on their own, is it your contention or the province's contention that we wouldn't own McNeil?
I said we'd have a very different conversation.
Okay, but what does that mean?
Well, it means we'd have a very different conversation. We'd be talking about whether or not how do we look at dealing with the issue of closing Boat Harbour for an operating facility or one that isn't. Those are two very different scenarios. I believe there's a path for them. They should focus on getting an EA that reflects the environmental standards of this province.
If they leave, could that cost the province more money or less money on Boat Harbour?
No, I don't think it'll. I don't believe it'll cost us more. But listen, there's a path forward here. They should focus on. These are all hypotheticals. They should focus on an EA.
The company has suggested before that if it had to close after January 31st, 2020, if it had to close, it couldn't close temporarily. But it's never quite said that. I'm wondering what they've communicated to you. I'm sure you've discussed the same point.
No, each time that I've spoke to anyone related to this issue, they need to focus on getting an EA, an environmental assessment that reflects the environmental standards of the province today. I believe this sector can exist. Pictou can, if the company is willing to make the investment. I believe it can coexist with the fishery in that region and the province, but it has to meet the environmental standard of today.
One of the criticisms that opposition leaders had made on Friday was that the situation is the way it is, at least in part because the Boat Harbor Act didn't include hard timelines for the company to meet. In other words, the suggestion that we are where we are because perhaps Northern Pulp didn't feel enough fire to get the work done. Do you think in hindsight the Boat Harbor Act should have had those kind of timelines in it, or do you think that onus falls to the company to do the work it needed to do?
Well, these are two very different situations. One is we're cleaning up an environmental situation that has been allowed to happen by successive governments. That's dealing with Boat Harbor. We give them a timeline of when they needed to put together. The other component of this was a treatment facility, and that is a decision that they as a company would make. They determine whether or not they want to make that investment, and then they realize what the timeline was that they had to meet.
Do you think stadium is the best use of that land in Shannon Park?
That is a decision for others. It's, I think I've said all along the fact that we should be celebrating the fact that the CFL is looking at expansion in the East Coast. It's looking at Nova Scotia. We are a sports province, tremendous university sports that we have here. Hopefully tonight, Game 7, we'll see the Mooseheads pull off a comeback, but if not, we'll certainly watch them in the Memorial Cup. We just watched the Scotties in Cape Breton. A stadium would not only be for football, it would be for other options. It would be my hope that whatever, if they build a stadium, that we would see, the UTEC Bowl be a permanent fixture here. We see a look at a Grey Cup. We look at pro soccer. We continue to see other activities that would be able to use that facility.
So you are supportive of a stadium?
I think in principle this province is ready, but what that stadium looks like, it's a private sector investment. What role we would play, no one's asked us to play one, but I've said all along we would look at options.
Thanks,
Thank you.